This is your place for all things Detroit Red Wings and all things Chicago Blackhawks. With your hosts, Jordan Linscott, David Barnhouse, Nick LePage, and Tim Stompanato. This is the Stick Blade Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Stick Blade Podcast, which is your place for all things Detroit Red Wings and Chicago Blackhawks. I'm your host for tonight, Jordan Linscott, and I'm joined by my co-host, David Barnhouse. Unfortunately, we only have the some Red Wings news right now. Unfortunately, right now, David and me are the only ones on the show, so there's only going to be Wings news tonight. Nick and Tim aren't here for the show, so it's a Wings only show.
Very unfortunate, they were both, checking their mail today, somehow at the same time, and rattlesnakes jumped out, bit them in the eyes. Can't see their computer screens right now.
I mean, David, let's just get into the free agency extravaganza, because for the past several years, the Red Wings have not spent hardly any money at the free agent market, and Steve Yzerman decided he was going to make some splashes, and he made some pretty big ones.
Made some pretty big ones in like the first hour of free agency. There's that amazing meme that kept getting reposted of like the trains, and it's like the one train is like NHL GMs getting ready for the free agency window, and then it's the other train just smashing through it, and it's just Steve Yzerman free agency window. Like, he smashed this window.
So I'm trying to think, what was it? They spent almost $20 million this free agency, right? It was right around 20 million.
Yep.
I mean, so for anybody who hasn't really been paying attention, basically they had a couple guys who they picked up on league minimums from other organizations, but they had really 5 big signings that I want to talk about. They picked up Ben Sherratt, Andrew Kopp, David Perron, Dominic Kubalik, and Olli Mata. So they picked up those 5 guys who they expect to have playing the NHL this year.
Mm-hmm.
The plan for tonight's show, we're going to walk through each of these deals, what they mean for the roster moving forward. We're going to talk a little bit about some of Steve Yzerman's press conference comments, because as a lot of the GMs do after free agency day, they had a press conference and he kind of talked about some of these signings. Then also we're going to talk about the fact that they brought on Jay Verardi from the Tucson Roadrunners AHL club just to be an assistant head coach. So again, it's another hire, just really completely changing the dynamic of the bench in Detroit. But let's just get into this. I kind of want to start with just the biggest one right off the bat. Steve Yzerman inked Andrew Kopp to a 5-year, $5.56 million per year contract, the biggest contract he's handed out since he's been an NHL GM.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess it's not true. Technically, they had the Jacob Vrana, or no, I can't remember if Verano was bigger than this one, but in terms of like free agency acquisitions, this is the biggest one he's had so far. Andrew Kopp's center came from the New York Rangers organization. This is the 2C, I think, until either Joe Veleno Rasmussen or eventually Marco Kasper takes him over.
Yeah, 100% agree. Yzerman went out and he got our 2C. I think back to our preseason podcast last season with Max Boltman, and we talked about the 2C, and he said, Yzerman could draft him, but he could also just go out and splash the cash. And that's exactly what he just did. He went out and he got not only a pretty good centerman in Andrew Kopp, but someone who's familiar, like, with players on the team. Like, he is from Michigan. Bingo, right there. Good points. He captained Dylan Larkin at the University of Michigan. They played together. Now he gets to be captained by Dylan.
That's kind of like a cool, like, happy accident. I think, like, it's kind of cool getting to watch the captaincy roles reverse for these two.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about Andrew Kopp that I really like about this deal is it's going to expire right when he's out of his 30s. Like, this isn't one of those deals where they signed him when he turned 30, and this is going to look like a bad contract after the first 3 years are done. It's a contract where by the time this is expiring, either Marco Kasper, Joe Veleno, or Michael Rasmussen should have established themselves as the definitive second line center in Detroit. And so we kind of talked about it, with Billy Huso last week, but it kind of just buys their center pipeline a little bit of time to develop before you really start having to expect those guys to play second line center and fork out. I don't want to say true second line center, but arguably higher end center cash.
Yeah, I mean, we want these young guys to develop. We want them to grow, and you don't want to throw these guys into that 2C role right away. Like Casper's definitely not ready. Rasmussen, I think, could be there soon if that's where we want to put him, but he's also been thriving as a winger too. And Veleno, it's a wild card with him. Like, yeah, I joke around. I love Joe Veleno. Like, he's great, Joe freaking Veleno. But we don't really know what his ceiling is right now. He needs time to grow. And my thoughts with Blashill, we talk about Blashill extensively, but Blashill to me is a plateau coach.
Mm-hmm.
He can coach you to a certain point and you just kind of stay there. I hope that Lalonde is the type of coach that can keep your growth going. And I think he's learned a lot under, the tutelage of John Cooper. He got hired by Yzerman in Tampa for a reason. He's helped Tampa win 2 cups. So I hope he's the type of coach that can kind of break through that, plateau, whatever you want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
that guys like Zadina seem to have fallen into, guys like Veleno have fallen into. Nothing against Blashill. I think he is good for a certain specific reason, but he wasn't the guy to keep that growth going.
And like the thing is like Andrew Kopp being injected into this lineup as like a second line centerman. I mean, you kind of talked about it with like the ceiling. I think Andrew Kopp honestly has a really good chance to help players who might have struggled a bit, like Zadina, like Veleno. I mean, Rasmussen, he started to come into his own at the end of last season, but you kind of saw what he's capable of in a full 82 game season if he can maintain that production.
Yeah.
And Copp's like a stable guy on your second like line centerman. He's a great two-way guy. He's not pure offensive, pure defensive guy, a true two-way center.
Yep, he is.
They had another sign it for them. They signed David Perron for a 2-year contract at 4.75 million per. This one's a shorter term, but again, it's a bigger number contract. David Perron has really taken off these past couple of years. And I think it's interesting that he comes to Detroit of all places to keep playing.
Yeah, I mean, Perron's been a key figure for the Blues. I mean, he's no Tarasenko, but he's been a key figure in their success. I mean, he's in his 30s, but he's still putting up pretty good numbers for goals, especially. He's a good locker room leader. Um, I Out of the big name free agent signings like that were possibilities, Copp was one that I was confident. Like Copp is like probably one we could actually probably get. Perrin wasn't even on my list of like considering people. And I just loved his interview. He was like, when you see your phone ringing and it says Steve Yzerman on the other line, you're interested. And I'm just like, hell yeah. Yzerman is bringing people back to Detroit. That luster of Detroit to me died a bit when we weren't able to lock down Zach Parise and Ryan Suter.
Mm-hmm.
When that happened, I was like, oh man, we're not a destination anymore. That's when it really hit me that like we're about to not collapse. I mean, we did collapse in the COVID year, but I'm like, we're not that key prime destination anymore. And it wasn't until Yzerman took over where you got guys like Bobby Ryan, where they're like, why are you here? Steve Yzerman. David Perrin. Steve Yzerman called. I listened. Like, inject this into my freaking veins. I'm excited.
And like the thing that's really interesting to hear about, I mean, not only him, but some of the other free agents they signed this off season. a lot of them did say, Detroit's an up and coming club and they want to be part of that success. I think a lot of players around the NHL can see the Red Wings actually have a really good young core here. And for
Mhm,
guys, I mean, you look at David Brown, like he signed a 2-year deal, right? And
mhm.
he's making, 4.75. That's pretty good money. But if he continues to have success with Detroit, I have no questions about whether other teams will continue to give him contracts. And he leaves an organization like St. Louis, for example, where eventually they're going to have to start getting younger guys in from their depth chart as well. You kind of put yourself in a position where you might be better than the young guys on a quote unquote rebuilding team right now, like Detroit is. You can showcase yourself a little bit better for your next contract. And I think it's actually really smart. A lot of these guys took shorter term deals like this.
Oh, for sure. I mean, a lot of their deals are going to be expiring when the ELCs for our young guys. So it's kind of a way for them to kind of make their image so they can get a better contract down the road towards the end of their careers as well, but also help groom these younger guys. Like, this is the place they want to be. Like, they can see something special here.
What are the other forward acquisitions that the Detroit Red Wings had? And this is actually funny because it came at the expense of the Chicago Blackhawks. Dominic Kubalik. It's interesting when the Hawks didn't qualify him. In my opinion, Dominic Kubalik had a great first year, second year, and just a not good third year. I think what was it? 4.5 million was going to be his projected qualifying offer.
Mhm.
Chicago lets him walk, and Detroit decides to grab him on a 2-year, $2.5 million per year contract. For a guy who's going to be playing middle six, I think that's pretty fair.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I loved Nick's tweet about it, where he said, "Oh no, Yzerman signed Kubalik. What is he seeing that we're not?" And I think it is. He's a very young guy. His rookie year, he put up 30 goals. There's something there, and I think just something happened in Chicago where the wheels fell off and it hurt him a bit. It hit his confidence with the team faltering the way they did, and maybe being put with these hungry wings who know that the time is coming for them will reawaken that 30 goal scoring Kubalik. And if that's the case, I feel really bad for Nick and Tim because I'm going to talk about it. I can't wait to name Kubalik as a player of the week, a star of the week for us.
And the thing is, like, Kubalik's not going to have the pressure on him in Detroit that he had in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Chicago did not have good depth on their wings at all, in my opinion. And Detroit's actually, especially after these free agent moves, got decent winger depth. They
Mm-hmm.
can play him on the third line at 2.5 million, and that's not really a gross overpayment.
No, not at all. And like people think, oh, third line, that's sad. Like he's on a third line. Our third line could be a stacked line. Like that could be a line that is like hurting people. Like I've said it numerous times in the past. People love the Yzermans, the Fedorovs, the Shanahans, and yes, I love them too. But one of my favorite lines to watch growing up was our grind lines. The Maltby, the Draper, the McCartys. They were fun to watch, and he's not one of those types of players. But it takes a whole team and not just your top two lines. Like we've seen that with Tampa, how deep that team is, and how their third line, we've joked, could be first line players in other teams. They have,
Mm-hmm.
like, what was it, Tyler Johnson?
Yeah, Tyler Johnson.
He played top minutes in Chicago multiple times. Like, that's what we're trying to build here.
And like the thing about Kublik is it's a 2-year deal, right? Like you've got to assume on his end, he's betting on himself. Just
Mm-hmm.
he gets a 2-year deal at Detroit. Detroit has really good success with him. Either Detroit re-ups him if they want, or he walks away UFA status, and then he can go sign like a 4 or 5 year deal somewhere else, making more money. This is a great contract for him. It's a great contract for Detroit. Neither team's locked in long term, and both parties have great freedom after this contract's done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good for both teams. Like I said, I'm excited to see what this kid can do. I mean, Pia Suter was all right. He wasn't like the greatest thing ever for us. He filled a role. He did all right. I'm more excited about Kubalik than Suter.
Like Kublik's maybe playing third line winger, I'd assume, and Suter's going to be playing third line center with him. You've got two guys who've got experience playing together already.
Mm-hmm.
And if you throw somebody on that third line wing position, like let's say you throw, I don't know, Philip Zadina on that wing spot, or if you play Michael Rasmussen on that spot, you've got two fairly bigger wingers playing with a pretty decent two-way center. It's a great like position to be in, to have players locked up for short-term deals on very reasonable contracts that you can move later on. This is a great one.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy to think about.
Like, let's say this contract blows up, right? And he just has two back-to-back, just not good seasons in Detroit. Oh no, we're out $2.5 million in cap space for 2 years when we're not close to the salary cap limit.
Yeah, we still
It's
have what,
not,
like 11 million, 13 million in cap space.
yeah, like Detroit, they've got breathing room still. And that's the thing, is they're having a bunch of contracts that aren't going to get ridiculously more expensive. Moritz Seider still got another year for his entry level. Raymond's got 2 more years. Um, Edvinson's going to have 2 more years after this season.
Mm-hmm.
This team's got a minute before a cap's really going to get tight on them. And it's sink or swim for these guys who are coming in as free agents, as well as the new guys. Nobody gets handed anything now.
Yeah, agreed. Although I don't think cap's ever going to be scary tight for us. I think Yzerman knows what he's doing, especially with the contracts he just did for the free agency window.
Um, we can move to the defensive signings because they did have two defensemen that they signed. The first one, they signed Ole Mata for a 1-year deal at $2.25 million. I don't know how you feel about this one, David. In my opinion, he's a bottom four defenseman, probably playing bottom pair. He's
Yeah,
just going to be like a stay-at-home plug, and that's not a markdown on him. Just, I think he's a plug. I think he's a plug while Edvinsson gets used to the NHL level.
yeah. He's a good defensive defenseman. He has a role. He knows how to play it. We plug him in it. Maybe he gets bumped up a line here and there. That's fine. But he's filling a spot. He's the new Mark Stahl.
Cheaper than Mark Stahl, but
True. Yeah. But he's filling that role. Like, loved Mark Stahl, but he was a role player. Like, he wasn't going to be a defenseman that was helping us win the cup. He was a guy there that was to mentor, Sider and Hronek and others, and to just fill a role. Mata's got a nice one-term deal. Maybe if he plays as well as he could, we could flip him for some assets at the deadline. You never know.
the other signing that the Wings had on defense, and I think this is probably the most interesting one of this whole thing, except for Andrew Kopp. They signed Ben Sherratt to a 4-year, $4.75 million contract. Now, I saw a lot of people online saying his production doesn't warrant 4.75. The advanced analytics don't make him worth that kind of money. They could have got somebody else. That being said, he logged ridiculous minutes in Montreal's Cup run when they went all the way to the finals. And he blocks a crap ton of shots, which is great. Detroit needs more
Yes, we
defensive
do.
defensemen, especially when you're going to put a guy like Edvinsson in who is new to the NHL. And if you really want to get Hronek to take that next step forward, you got to have stay-at-home defensemen.
Exactly. I think, yeah, uh, internet's very polarizing with this deal. They're like, oh, Eiserman's making a mistake. But I'm like, the only mistake Eiserman's ever really made, in my opinion, is the Perlini trade. Everything else has played out well. I agree with you. He did put up really good minutes on Montreal's Cup run. He's a defensive defenseman. He shuts things down. He blocks shots, something we desperately need because our goalies need a little break. Um, I think he's there to help Hronek, help Edvinsson grow because they are offensive-minded defensemen, um, and they need that coverage. I think he provides that coverage. Being said, who goes with Seider top line.
I mean,
I mean, we got to talk about this after we go over our free agent signings. We got to build our opening roster lineup at some point.
I'm not really sure who pairs with Seider, but again, I
Seider
think you're
pairs
going to
with
see
Seider.
the first couple weeks of the season really pan out who's playing together. Like Detroit, in my eyes, has like a grade A two-way defenseman in Moritz Seider. They've got a pretty decent shutdown defenseman in Sherratt. They have an okay shutdown guy in Mata. They have two offensive guys in Edvinson and Hronek. And then on the sixth spot, you're kind of just filling in with either like Lindstrom, who I think is okay, but again, I kind of project him as like a middle pair guy, or sorry, like a bottom pair guy at like Olimata.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's a tricky one. Like the defensive group isn't set this year like it usually is because there's no Danny DeKaiser, there's no Mark Stahl. The dynamic changed.
The sky's the limit. What could we do with it, you know? And then
We talked about Ville Husso already, though.
Yeah, we did. Billy Husso, great signing. I think with good defense, which we just signed two defensive defensemen, we could have one of the best tandems in the Eastern Conference.
And it's a short-term tandem. Like you're not stuck with this tandem for a long time either. Both of them, like Nedeljik's got what, 2 more years left?
Yep.
And Husso's got 3. So again, it's a short-term tandem just until Sebastian Gosa comes up and he's ready to take over a starter or like a backup position at the NHL level. If we're grading the free agency this year by Steve Yzerman, what is your grade, David?
God. I mean, he filled all the positions we needed to be filled. Like, if you look at the list of like team needs, checked them all off. So I would say like an A minus, B plus, somewhere around there for me.
So I think I'd agree. I think B plus is pretty fair. Like he didn't sign any like blockbuster deals again of like the high number guys. Like, you know, Johnny Gaudreau ended up going to like the Columbus Blue Jackets.
God, what an idiot.
But in terms of like rebuild signings or like guys who you want to be here till your prospects are finished developing, I think it's a B plus free agency this year.
Yeah, speaking of free agency type news, Jake Wallman going to arbitration.
Is he going? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's anything serious. I think they're gonna be like, okay, here's what it is.
Yeah, he doesn't have a big enough NHL sample size to warrant big money anyway.
Yeah, when people think of arbitration, I think a lot of people think, oh, it's negative. Like the player doesn't want to play there and he wants to make more money, but it's just them kind of like meeting and figuring it out.
Well, and that's the thing. It's kind of like neither team can agree on a party or neither party can agree on a term and a number.
Mm-hmm.
A third party is going to do it for you who's unbiased.
Yep. It's very simple stuff. I mean, we've had players go through it, like Yuri Hudler did it years ago. It's just a thing that happens. I don't think it happens a lot, as you see. Like Larkin will not go to arbitration or anything like that. Like, I think his deal is going to be announced pretty soon.
And that's the thing is like arbitration, I don't think is really a big deal unless it happens constantly. Like if every time a player is up for a new contract, it goes to arbitration, that's when I think you might want to worry about it. But other than that, I don't really think it's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I do want to talk about, Steve Yzerman, he had a press conference after their free agency was over. Yeah. And he made 2 comments that I kind of want to talk about. The first one is that he expects Filip Zadina and Filip Hronek to take bigger steps with the club this year. I know there's been a lot of talk about, you know, is either one of them getting traded. I think this is a good show of faith from him that he thinks that these players who got picked up in free agency can help boost those 2. Detroit's been really depleted, especially on the defensive side of the puck. And you finally got some more definitive shutdown guys who can help cover for Filip Hronek's mistakes or like his turnovers when he pinches too hard. Filip Zadina, you gave him, I think, just a little bit more of a stable 2-way player and a guy who can help set him up or who he can actually help facilitate chances with.
Yeah, I mean, I really hate internet fans because they're like, Zadina's trash, like, bust. But like, There was a point last season, the season before, the line he was on with Suter and with Verona, was it Fabry? I forget.
Fabry.
Where they were like in the top three of expected goals,
Across
like
the NHL.
across the NHL. Like Zadina just needs, like I said before, with Blashill, I think Blashill could only take him to a certain point. And I think Yzerman has faith that Derek Lalonde can help those guys continue to grow. And I think having a healthy Verana back the whole season with him, having Andrew Kopp mentoring and centering for him possibly sometimes, like you might bump him up to the second line, putting Bertuzzi with him. And there's so many different combinations you can put with him. I think he's going to be fine. Hronek, I mean, there was a few seasons ago where he was great. He was putting up good minutes, decent stats, not defensively as much, but offensively, he was getting in there. And then it kind of just faltered a bit. If Yzerman has faith in them, I think he sees something maybe not everybody does.
And like the thing, especially about Filip Hronek, I've seen a lot of people saying, he should be traded. Let's not forget, he's almost a half a point per game defenseman. In terms of the NHL, that's fantastic production for being a blue liner.
Yep. I think they just need that new coach, and I think these new players coming in are going to help them.
And like that's the
speculation.
thing.
There was speculation too with that quote that you said, where people were like, "Oh, are they going to trade Bertuzzi?" No, that's not what that means. Especially since he said that he wants to build the team around Larkin and Bertuzzi.
And again, like that's another thing that's kind of interesting because they've injected just a little bit more stability into this lineup. I mean, the Larkin Bertuzzi Raymond line was fantastic last season. It didn't really get broken up unless somebody was injured, obviously. Yep. It does allow them to move a guy like Bertuzzi down the lineup or allow somebody else to play with Dylan Larkin and Lucas Raymond, who, like, let's say they decide David Perron should be playing top line with those guys. They can move David Perron up and slot Bertuzzi down to be playing with Andrew Kopp and Filip Zadina. Great. Now you have a two-way center, a guy who can play the boards, and a guy who can absolutely snipe from your slot. Great. You have a more balanced lineup.
That line just sounds ridiculously good, too. You can insert Bertuzzi in any line, and it's going to sound good.
I mean, that's the thing, though. It's this free agency, though. It allows Steve Yzerman so much more flexibility. And I mean, to an extent, Derek Lalonde, a lot more flexibility with the lines they deploy.
Oh, my God. As long as he doesn't Blashill blender it up.
I don't think he's gonna, though, to be honest. I think just looking at what Tampa doesn't do a lot of blendering.
Yep.
And then the last piece of Wings news to talk about, Jay Varady ended up getting brought in as an assistant coach from the Tucson Roadrunners. For anyone who's not familiar, it's an AHL team. He went from being a head coach there to an assistant coach for the Red Wings. I'll be honest, I'm not super familiar with his track record, but that being said, I like seeing guys who were head coaches elsewhere getting assistant coaches here. You're bringing guys in who've got experience behind the bench already in a professional environment, and you're trying somebody else different behind the bench.
Agreed. Like you said, I have no idea who he is. Like I know like a little bit about, like you said, the Arizona Roadrunners coaching, but I do like that. Like what you said, like it made me think, yeah, bring an AHL head coach, someone who's led a team down there, and have him assist at the NHL level to learn more, but to bring his ideas to the table as well. Like I'm really excited for this new coaching staff with everybody they've brought in.
I mean, like the interesting thing is Detroit really did have a ton of coaching changes this offseason. Lalonde is different. You've got now Jay Varadian, who he's a change. I'm blanking on the new goaltending coach that they have, but he's new.
Did we get rid of Alex Tanguay?
No, I think Alex Tanguay is sticking around, which I know some people wanted him gone after last year's power play was not great, but I stand by it. The tools last year were not that good either. So Verano was out basically all year. Fabry went out early. You kind of took all of his power play toys away from him.
All right, here's my question because you just said Verana again, and all I can think about is Verana. He stays healthy, plays all 82 games. Over under 40 goals.
Ooh, it's close. I'm gonna say 35. I think
Okay.
35, maybe 40 if he gets hot.
Every time he plays, he's hot. Like he came back like almost endish of season last year, and he's like, I'm just gonna score a bunch of goals now. I
What was he,
missed it.
almost a goal a game?
Pretty much. Like, God, if he can keep those numbers going for a full 82 games for us, good Lord, Washington's gonna just look at it and be like, man.
We got fleeced.
And that's not saying Mantha's bad, but they also gave us like a bunch of draft picks too.
Yeah, like we took Richard Panic off their hands, and then they gave us a first round draft pick as well.
And a second, I think, too, the following season.
That trade looks so good in hindsight.
Yeah.
Um, I don't have anything else for the Wings to talk about. And like I said, I feel kind of weird talking about like all the Blackhawks stuff without Tim or Nick here. So we'll save that for our next episode. Unless you have anything else, David, to add to tonight's show.
Let's think. Hmm. I mean, we can probably save making our opening night rosters for a
Say,
little bit.
I want to wait till the preseason to do that.
Yeah. But do you think Eiserman's done?
I feel like he's done for right now. I feel like he's going to probably keep that cap space open.
Okay.
And there's going to be some team at the deadline who wants to offload a super big contract that they have term left, like a year or two left on. He could take a pick from him, kind of like Chicago did with Peter Mrazek, where they got a first round draft pick for taking him off their hands. I don't know why he can't do that with this. Like, I think it was like 11 or $12 million in cap space they have,
Yeah, it's something like that. Let me pull it up on Cap Friendly. But
but
like, it's
there's no reason they can't.
ridiculous. No, there's not. Like, he has so much to work with, and he knows how to work with it. That's the scary thing. Like I just love Nick's tweet about when we signed Kubalik. Like Eiserman sees things that not everybody does, and it's it's scary sometimes. Like Verana, Fabry, uh, who else jumps out?
I mean, Verona and Fabry were two good. I mean, great pickups.
All right. So currently, our projected cap space is 10.2 mil.
Okay, so I mean, almost, yeah, 10.2. I mean, that's still, you can take a pretty bloated contract off a team that wants to go spend assets on someone else.
God, Dylan Larkin's only 25.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus.
So for everyone who's saying that this rebuild won't be over until he's out of his prime,
He's not
nah,
even in
he's
it.
gonna be in like it. I would say he'll be like 27 by the time this rebuild is quote unquote done and the Wings are making the playoffs again.
Kubalik is older than him. Jesus. Oh
It
my God. Looking at our forwards, only one forward is over 30, and that's Perron.
And that's the thing. Detroit is the third youngest
Youngest
team in
team.
the NHL. I think what's their average age? Like 25.6 or something like that.
It was just on Reddit today. Like people posted about it on Reddit. I mean, it was like top of the page. Let me pull it up.
But either way, like
Um,
Detroit is a really young team. And
yep,
after
third
these deals
youngest at
expire,
26.1 years
or
old.
all right, 26. Okay, not super far off, but like 26 years old is like your average ager. That's not bad, especially given a lot of that age is being artificially inflated by the free agents we just signed.
Yep, our two current goalies are 27 and 26.
Still plenty of time as goaltenders.
Oh my God, yes.
I mean, goaltenders can play until like probably around 35, 37, maybe. It's not unheard of to see goaltenders playing that late into their careers. I mean, who is it? Mike Smith for Edmonton was playing until he was 40.
God,
I mean,
it's
like
nuts.
Detroit's got a long like period where they're going to get to be competitive.
It's gonna be good. Like I say, I joke about it like every so often on our show. I can't wait for the rest of the league to hate us again. Like,
it's
I want us to be like the goddamn New England Patriots. I just want people to hate us.
and it'll happen, I think, honestly, in 2 years. And that's the other big question with these free agent moves, David.
Mm-hmm.
How much longer are we rebuilding? Because I honestly think we could play for a wild card spot this year, and I don't think that's an unrealistic expectation.
Yeah, you and I talked about this for a little bit before the show started. Because Eiserman, I don't think he's going to say, oh, the rebuild's over. Like, that's not the kind of guy he is. But is it over? Or is it just like, here's the door, like, here's the door. I have a door here, and it says rebuild on it. And you have to leave the door. Is the door open now, getting ready for us to leave? Like, you can now just step out? Or is it like a Michigan goodbye where it's going to take another like 30 minutes and then you slap you and you go, well, time to go.
I feel like if you're using the door analogy, I kind of think of it as your hand is on the door handle and you're getting ready to twist it to open it.
Okay.
Like it's about to happen. It just needs that last little push to happen.
But it's not a Michigan goodbye where it takes another 3 hours before you actually leave the house.
No, it's not a Michigan goodbye.
For people that don't understand, especially in the Midwest, it takes forever to actually leave like a party, a get together, a house, because you just keep talking and like they'll walk you to the car. And it's not until you like slap the knee, you go, well, time to get a moving or something like that. Then it's like, okay, now you're serious.
Mm-hmm.
But no,
But
grabbing the door handle, yeah, I can see that. Like Iserman made these signings to begin opening that door to kind of leave the rebuild phase. Whereas Chicago has the door and now they're just dragging chains on it and they're going to burn it down.
we can talk about Chicago when Nick and Tim are back here because man, they're free. Like the Blackhawks free agency was so different than Detroit's.
I'm really interested to pick their brains next time we talk to them about this because like we have our text thread going, but like actually talking, yeah, I can't. I'm looking forward to it.
But yeah, like I said, unfortunately, Tim and Nick aren't here, so we're not going to talk the Blackhawks free agency this week. We will on our next show, though, so please stay tuned for that. The development camp just happened, so preseason will be coming up here in a couple weeks.
Yep, in a few weeks, yeah. I mean, there was some fun stuff to watch in the development camp. I mean, Amadeus Lombardi had the Michigan goal, so that was pretty funny to watch. A lot of draft analysts did not grade our draft very high.
Did you watch Marco Casper and like at their development camp and watch the drills? That he looks good.
That whole little like pre-draft stuff about him about having a just limitless motor. Yeah, I get it. That kid can go.
But yeah, I'm really excited for this upcoming Red Wings season. I think that there's a lot of potential to actually put a very entertaining product on the ice for once because it's not familiar for us now because we haven't been good for what are we going on 6 years now at this point?
Yeah, the wheels fell off during
2016
COVID.
was the last time the Wings made the playoffs. And it had been first round exits, except for the 2013 season when they lost to the Hawks in Game 7. Other than that, it's been first round exits anyway.
Yep.
It's awesome to think that we're going to finally start playing really meaningful games again.
Yep. And I think the excitement, like I hate to say it, but the excitement for like pushing us out of the rebuild and making the big changes happened when we got stomped by Arizona. Like seeing Iserman in the box looking down with that look on his face, he's like, done.
It just, he had like, I call it the John Wick face. He just looked down and you could just tell like something was about to happen.
Blashill was like, yeah, I'm not coming back next year after this.
It just,
Speaking of Blashill, assistant at Tampa now.
Yeah, good for him. You know what? Good for him. It's not a head coaching gig, but you also went to a Stanley Cup contender to get to go work. So trade-offs.
You get to learn under John Cooper. I think John Cooper is a phenomenal coach, and I think he could help Blashill improve his craft.
I mean, Cooper's won 2 Stanley Cups, and he's kept Tampa competitive for how many years now?
Mm-hmm.
But no, I mean, it is like good for Jeff Blashill, good for him getting a coaching position somewhere else in the NHL.
Yeah. I
Um,
knew he would. I knew he wasn't going to get a head coaching job unless it was back in the AHL. But I think he had the taste for the NHL and wanted to stay. So I'm glad he, found I think a good fit for him.
mm-hmm. Because we're talking about the Blackhawks side of the free agency for this year's free agent season. Nick, walk me through just what went on with the Hawks this free agency session, because it was very different than what me and David were talking about with Detroit.
Yeah, so Blackhawks signed two for Andreas Anthony and Max Domi. They need to fill bodies in somewhere and kind of got to keep Patrick Kane happy. So that's their two biggest signings, along with Alex Stalock and then a couple other Colin Blackwell, and then a couple other depth signings. Probably won't cover too much into that. And then the biggest departure probably from the organization in a while. I mean, everybody would have thought it was Alex DeBrincat, but no, it's the guy that's been calling games for 16 years. Eddie Olczyk has left the Blackhawks organization, won't be the color or play-by-play guy or color commentator for the Blackhawks, and he's off to the Seattle Kraken. So that's really it for the Hawk side of news. I mean, we could just jump right into it.
Let's dive in. Let's go.
Yeah. Tim, how you feeling about, so we can start. I feel like Eddie Olczyk's going to take a lot of our time.
Yeah, that's going to be the primary focus. The man was an institution.
Yeah.
So let's pick apart the scraps.
Yeah.
Let's pick apart our free agency period.
Yeah. It's not as fun as it used to be, where everybody was hyped to sign Brad Richards. Now it's like, oh, we got Max Domi and Andres.
What veterans are we going to bring in to bolster the core? What European free agent sweepstakes are we going to win? No, we've got players. Which is more than we had a week or two ago. First off, I just got to say, glad we're doing this episode. Made me sick to my stomach to realize Jordan let you and David get away with another Oops All Red Wings episode. So glad we can at least, it's not necessarily great news. It's not necessarily, the most exciting thing in the world for the most part, but we got to get the Hawks news. So I think first and foremost, I'd love to break this down into what we've gained and what we've lost, because I think those are two very important differences in free agency. What we gained, we expected there were going to be, scrap pieces, guys getting 1 or 2 year deals to raise their stock a little bit, make us serviceable on the ice, and maybe get these guys to boost their numbers and trade them at the deadline. Max Domi is a name that has been in this league for a little bit now. I like his game. I mean, he makes some bonehead plays, but all in all, I think he's a pretty competent forward that could be fun to watch on the ice this year.
Yeah, Max Domi, it's a name that I've always kind of liked. I mean,
same.
It's built on his name, with obviously his dad being legend Ty Domi.
Was a legend.
But he's had quite the interesting ride in the NHL. He was a highly touted prospect. Arizona, or the Phoenix Coyotes back in 2013, drafted 12th overall. So another Coyote to Blackhawk transition. A couple of pit stops along the way, but I think back during the trade deadline, when Domi was acquired by the Hurricanes, I was like, that was one of my favorite moves, just because the Hurricanes were one of those flashy teams. They skill it up on you, kind of like the Anaheim Ducks. And but no, Domi adds a little grit. He has some skill to him. I mean, it was only 4 years ago, 2018, 2019.
Did we lose Nick?
Nick, are you speechless? Oh, there he is.
Shit. All right, hold on. Cut this. What was the last thing I said?
2018, 2019.
All right, ready? All right, and yeah, it was only in 2018, 2019. He put up 72 points with the Canadiens. So he's one of those guys that he's physical. He has some scoring potential to him. And I mean, you imagine he's going to play with Patrick Kane, kind of boost his trade value, flip him for a second or third round pick at the deadline. So I like the signing. It's a 1 year deal, $3 million. But obviously, he has a little history with Connor Murphy. Hopefully, they could squash that beef a little bit for the season, or it'll be another circus show.
I mean, didn't wasn't it a couple years ago that Brandon Manning like broke McDavid's collarbone, and then Chiarelli grabbed Manning from us and said, "Okay, McDavid, here's your teammate. This guy,
come on over."
It's a business. They know. Like, I'm sure that's all water under the bridge, or if it's not, it will be. And again, I guess I'm looking around. Colin Blackwell's a good, like, he's a very serviceable middle six, bottom six guy. Who I'm also kind of excited about is Andreas Athanasiou. Jordan, you know this name well, being a former Red Wing. His wheels are, to me, what stands out the most. Jordan, if you could help us out a little bit, give us the scouting report. We all know this guy is one of the fastest players in the league. He had a killer season in Detroit, but it sort of fell off in Edmonton. What can you tell us about this guy? What are we expecting?
So with Athanasiou, basically what you can expect is, like you said, he's got great wheels on him. One of the fastest players in the NHL. Really offensive minded, and when I say he's got really bad defensive stats, I mean it's pretty bad.
Cool.
That's what we want.
I was gonna say that's actually perfect. High scoring, high loss.
Like, it's about on par with like how Patrick Kane's defensive stats were at the start of his NHL career. So
I'm glad you put that stipulation in, but also okay, that paints a picture.
He's very much like a speedy winger, likes to play the sniper role when it's possible. That being said, he's fast, but he does sometimes have a problem executing at speed, which can sometimes be frustrating because you see the chances develop and then just the finish doesn't happen.
So might not have the hands to match.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not a big bodied player by any stretch. Like, he's not tiny, but he's not muscling anyone off the puck. He's definitely a very skill oriented player, not playing the boards.
Yeah. No, I'm on par with you there, Jordan. I mean, basically looking at what he did in Detroit, then he was traded to Edmonton for a pretty good, like, what was it?
Where I thought he'd thrive getting to play. Yeah. Finally, McDavid has somebody that's moving as fast as he is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just one of those players that, like, he skates fast, but he can't play fast. It feels like he has to slow it down, which
if Vinny Hinostroza was kind of like that in his first couple of years.
Yeah. I mean, which that's fine. I mean, if you know anyone that could play fast or play slow, and Patrick Kane played with Artem Anisimov for 2 seasons. So
yes, that's speed isn't.
And Brad Richards. So
and Handzus.
Yeah, like a 39-year-old Brad Richards and like a 78-year-old Michael Handzus. But no, this is another low risk, high reward signing. If it's same term as Domi, 1 year, $3 million. Maybe you could flip him for a 3rd round pick. I mean, this might be Patrick Kane's line. Kyle Davidson might have brought him in to be like, hey, all right, you want 2 somewhat skilled players? Here you go. Andreas Athanasiou and Max Domi.
And that's going to be our best line.
Yeah, that's scary.
Oh God.
Yeah, but I'm okay. It's something. I mean, maybe keep Kane happy for a little bit.
And it gives Reichel a little time to maybe come in as our 3rd line center, or maybe start him on a 2nd line wing or something like that. Because I realistically don't see Taves being anything less than 2nd line center next year. I mean, he went from being the 3rd line center, 2nd line, 3rd line center last year to on this team. There's no way he's 3rd line center. No. But that said, the other, like, again, we've filled out a bunch of small 2-way contract signings, mostly for depth in Rockford. But I am excited to see Dylan Sikora back in the organization. Yeah,
Sikura's an interesting one. I thought I read a tweet earlier this week that he had like 70-something points in the AHL this year. And he was off, like, we referred to him quite a bit on the show throughout the season. Like, when a player like has all the tools but can't put it together.
It's a Dylan
it's a Sikura. But I mean, along with Athanasiou, or not to track back to Athanasiou, but now Sikura has no pressure. And Athanasiou is one of those players that also thrived off having no pressure. Like, this team's going to suck. So just go out there, play. If we lose, good. That's what we want to do. But yeah, I mean, it's good to see him. He might actually have a legit shot. Like, he doesn't have to worry about getting sent down to Rockford because you don't have to like rush force Mike Hartman into the lineup. Like you have skill players where you could, I don't know if you call them, like they're not skill players, but like,
but they're not Reese Johnson.
yeah, they're not Reese. You're not throwing Reese Johnson in the lineup every 3 nights. So, yeah, it's nice. That's really all. We've been through this. Hopefully, you can put it together.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about all these spaces that are available, all these guys that are filling holes. That sort of brings us to who we lost in free agency. Most of the guys were RFAs that we just didn't qualify. I mean, guys like Wyatt Kalanick, I think, is a surprise to both of us.
Signed with Vancouver.
Yeah, which of course, I hope he gets an opportunity. He was sold on getting an opportunity. That's why he signed with us instead of Philly. Weird logjam scenario that we created and didn't really enact a plan to fix.
Yeah.
So glad Kalanick's getting an opportunity. We bought out Brett Connolly. We let Dahan go. Andre Alti-Barmaken. I really hope that was correct.
That's close enough.
He didn't get re-signed or RFA'd, which I'm surprised at, just given his toolkit. I hope he gets an opportunity somewhere else. Cale Morris didn't get. Mate Chalupa's gone. I think Cam Morrison's gone. That said, the big ones that are gone, Dominic Kubalik and Dylan Strome. That hurts. And I think both of us, while we expected it, I think we were both a little gobsmacked by it. Am I correct?
Yeah, I mean, Jordan got to cover it on Monday with the Red Wings.
At least he's not going too far from home.
Yeah, I think I texted him the group chat. It's like, I mean, Stevie Y did it to us in the draft where like he ran up to the stage and literally, I don't think Kubalik lasted that long in free agency, and he was a Red Wing. I mean, with that being said, much better term. And
much better term and much better salary.
Yeah, for what the Red Wings got him for compared to what the Hawks could have got him for. So it makes sense. Again, it's one of those things that just never clicked here anymore. Like Kubalik couldn't really get himself open. He needed players to do that, and Taves just wasn't that player anymore. So now he has a chance to go succeed in Detroit, where maybe he's with Larkin, maybe he's with Bertuzzi, maybe he's with Raymond, all the other skilled young guys they have up there. So yeah, that one's kind of oh well. Like I was kind of
I was ready to move on from Kubalik personally. He had one great year, one good year, and this last year was abysmal. And I don't know. I don't know much about much when it comes to the actual like intricacies of playing in the NHL, but it seemed like goalies had figured out Kubalik's style of shooting, his consistency, the sort of idiosyncrasies he brings. And it did not seem like he was adjusting. It reminds me of when DeBrincat sort of went through a scoring slump and he said, okay, I'm going to focus on all these other aspects of my game because the scoring will go in. It doesn't feel like Kubalik ever changed or tried to evolve his game.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, it's 100% the case, but the Red Wings, it fits what the Red Wings need, though. They need a stutter much. They need a shooting threat / scoring threat on that team, and Kubalik's exactly the guy.
And I think Detroit is different than where we're at right now because with the Hawks, given whichever line's on the ice, you've got one or two guys that you're paying attention to. Believe it or not, with Detroit where they're at now, there's a lot of guys to pay attention to. And if Dominic Kubalik is chipping in secondary scoring as opposed to being a primary scorer, as we needed him, I think he's going to be in a better chance to succeed.
Yeah. Jordan, so for those listening, this is going to be on the same episode. We're recording 2 different nights. I'm not sure if we clarified that for the podcast part. Jordan, did you talk much about it earlier on in this episode?
You mean like Kubalik and his role with the Wings?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the idea behind Kubalik going to the Wings, and David and I kind of agreed on it, is he's probably going to be expected to play, middle 6 minutes, assumedly with either Andrew Kopp or P.S. Suter centering him. P.S. Suter
centering him
is a third line center fantastic. You have a great two-way center to help set you up. And if he's playing third line, he's probably playing with either Michael Rasmussen or Joe Veleno. Maybe what's his name? I'm blanking. Maybe Jonathan Berggren if they end up bringing him up this season, or Philip Zadina. Fantastic. Detroit's in a unique scenario where they've got 3 two-way centers who they can slot Kubalik wherever they want.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like I don't know, what's the phrase with the riches? Embarrassment of the riches.
Yeah, an
Yeah.
embarrassment of riches.
Yeah, like it's weird to say that about Detroit because like it was like we used to like just make fun of you guys like when this podcast first started, but now it's just
And now
like,
we're there.
yeah, now yeah. Now it's just like you guys
It's a
have
circle.
depth. And it's weird to talk good about Kubalik, but Detroit just recently signed the last 2 years. Our 2 guys that we prided ourselves in, like the 2 cheap finds in Kubalik and Suter, and now we get to see them on the other side of this podcast. As for Strome,
That one hurts.
that sucked. That stung.
Yeah.
I'm glad he's going to Washington. I think that's a really good fit for him because that's
Agreed.
just, especially with Backstrom out for Backstrom's going to be out for a little bit.
Yeah, basically the whole year.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a guy he's criticized for his skating, but he could really dish the puck. And, someone to dish the puck like that to Ovechkin just chilling in his kitchen. Oh, Dylan.
I mean, that's
Strome.
exactly it. He thinks the game on such a great level, and his ability to slow the game down and like see those plays, make those passes, be aware of where everyone is on the ice. He makes up for his skating. I mean, we saw that with playing with Kane and DeBrincat. He was never out of place on that line. Obviously, he needs talented people to make it work because that style of play doesn't work unless you have talented people that know where you're going to be, that you can trust and whatnot. But yeah, if it's him and Kuznetsov as the 2 main centers for the Capitals, he's going to be playing with people. He could be playing with Anthony Mantha. He could be playing with TJ Oshie.
Tom Wilson, Alex Ovechkin.
He's got the people to surround himself with to really make the aspects of his game that shine brightly. They signed him what, a 1-year, $3.5 million deal?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a short-term one.
This feels like Strome's taking a bet on himself to show I can go somewhere else. I can do this. I think his next contract's going to be a long-term one if this year pays off.
Yeah, I could see after this year, like a 4 or 5 year deal or around $5 million.
Yeah.
I think, no, it's a good gamble on himself. Perfect team to go try to gamble on yourself because they got high skilled offensive players all over the line. So, very good signing for the Capitals. I'm excited to see what Strome does. It sucks to lose him, especially because all the comments he made about how much he loved the city of Chicago.
Yeah.
It just kind of hurts. Like we take pride in our city, and we enjoy when athletes also come here and like.
I mean,
yeah,
he named
this
his
is my
first
home.
dog Wrigley.
Yeah.
Like he loved this city. He loved being here. This is where he got a fresh start after being rescued from the Arizona State Coyotes.
Yeah,
And
this was the start of his career. essentially.
yeah, it really was. And like, I don't know why this organization just stopped. Like ever since the Jeremy Colleton era, this organization as a whole has been done with Dylan Strome. And I get the argument of, well, no, I don't get the argument of he makes us better and we don't want to win games because my feelings on that.
Oh yeah.
But it seems like this decision was made before we decided to tank. Like, we're going to get rid of Strome. We've made up our minds. Strome is done. It feels like the same thing where like they made up their mind. They're like, we are going to not have DeBrincat by the end of this draft.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's frustrating because his qualifying offer was only 3.6.
And we have the cap. That's what pisses me off.
Right.
But yeah, it sucks. It just feels like Davidson showed. I'm not going to shit on. This is not shitting on Davidson. I mean, this goes back to the old regime too.
Yeah.
Dad and Bowman. Like they showed their hand. They're like, we don't want Dylan Strome. For some reason, they didn't want Dylan Strome.
Which
Whatever
that reason was.
If it was his defense deficiencies or whatever. Yeah, that was the main reason. I mean, good for him though. He's not going to go like at the beginning of this past season. He was either a healthy scratch or playing on the 4th line. Now he's going to go to a place where
he's a top 2 center.
Yeah, the top 2 center. He should have been the top 2 center on the Hawks all year.
Yeah.
But no, good for him. And then As for just the other signings, Blackwell, fine. Third, fourth line center.
Yeah.
He's there.
He's a
Not gonna-
2-year deal though, which is
Yeah.
interesting.
I wonder, I mean, I feel like all their signings, besides who I'm going to go into next, it's not obviously a big one, but I feel like Blackwell is one of those guys that, you know, if he plays decent enough in the larger minutes, because he was a fine player for Seattle.
And he was okay for the Rangers.
Yeah. So if he plays in a decent role, gets a lot of minutes, that extra year term might help them net another, like a higher, like not a first or second, maybe a third.
I get a couple of third-round picks. I feel like we potentially hit on some third-round picks in this draft. So
yeah,
wasn't Wyatt Kaiser a third-round pick the year before?
I believe so. Yeah.
I mean, that's a good track record so far in the last couple of years.
And then Alex Stelak, he's a goalie. He's
He's a goalie.
yeah. He's one of those guys. He's a suitcase that's been around quite a bit. Good luck, because you're gonna be seeing a lot of pucks.
He's exactly what we want in a backup. Someone that it's like Mrazek. It doesn't matter if we ruin them.
Yeah. They don't
And
care.
that's all I've got to say about that.
They do not care.
Oh, Henrik Borgstrom we let go too, who is also on the Capitals now.
Oh yeah, that was a sweetener. That was the whole sweetener in that trade with Florida. That was wise. All right. Yeah.
We kind of liked this trade at the time.
Yeah, but it's just looking at it now. It's like,
it was Stillman for Carlson because nobody else is really playing.
Yeah, it's just so weird to look at. Like Borgstrom was this highly touted prospect in college, never really figured it out. Yeah. So Henrik Borgstrom's gone in Washington. So that's all right. Before we get into the next segment,
Yeah.
I want to. Everybody's shitting on Davidson right now.
Oh, I'm ready for this because I've seen some of I know where this is going and I'm all about it.
It is absolutely astonishing how many Blackhawks fans are going at Davidson. You think he wanted to be put in this type of situation?
This is a nightmare scenario
Yeah,
to start your GM career.
You got the old regime, which I love when podcasts refer to them and they don't even mention them by name anymore.
It's
Just
so good. I prefer
old
that,
regime.
frankly.
You got the old regime who screwed everything up. Like Stan Bowman screwed it all up. Eddie Olczyk, who we'll get to in a second, said this rebuild should have started years ago, which we all agree.
Oh, yeah.
Even Jordan said like this should have started in 2017. Like he was on board with us. Davidson comes in, and he doesn't have a first round pick. He doesn't have anything. No prospects, barely any assets. You got all your people that are even tradable on no move clauses, and you're kind of forced to hand. You have to be desperate and make moves just to try to rebuild the system. So don't go at Davidson for letting go or trading these people or signing, like not making a splashy signing, which Hawks fans shouldn't want a splashy signing anyways.
Yeah.
This is what it comes to. Like in the NHL, you have to absolutely suck for so long to build up to the top. I agree. Tanking sucks. Like it should just come natural. Like you should be bad naturally.
Detroit was naturally bad. They didn't tank on purpose.
You had old guys that just like you kind of stuck with it, and it's like we suck.
You've also got teams like the Kings and the Rangers where that's not the norm.
Yeah, and then the Avalanche, like they sucked. They had a career worst year, like 48 points or something like that. They didn't trade Rantanen. They didn't trade Landeskog. They didn't trade McKinnon. They sucked. The Hawks just weren't lucky enough to be in that situation. Like you have to trade to break it. Sadly, I still disagree with it, but like when you have no prospects, you can't really build off anything.
I think the biggest issue was that the way we hyped up what the return was going to be. And it goes to show somebody's, and again, this is anything economics wise, they're only worth what somebody's willing to pay. If somebody's willing to overpay, Brandon Hagel was worth 2 first-round picks and 2 roster players. And I know people are like, oh my goodness, DeBrincat got a first, a second, and third, and Hagel got all this other stuff. What was he worth to Tampa with that contract, with what he brought to the table, with his role, versus 2 low, nonsense first-round picks that are glorified seconds, basically, and 2 players that just weren't didn't have the space for, where you could put Brandon Hagel in. Yeah, that makes sense value wise. Whereas DeBrincat did not seem interested, from what I'm hearing, in signing, like a trade and then like signing an extension immediately. And also, so I think there were teams that were nervous about that. It was also pretty evident that we felt like we had to move DeBrincat. It sounds like that was the best offer available. And Davidson said the future is more important than where we're at right now. I don't like it. I don't like trading DeBrincat. I don't like the tank. I understand it. And I think if you look at what Davidson took pick wise and turned it into, I can't complain. It would be one, again, the previous regime. The reason we can't beat Colorado is because we bungled or traded away 90% of our first round picks.
You traded way too early first round picks that should have been cornerstone pieces for your franchise when your rebuild's over.
We've traded away, I think, every single first round pick. We haven't had a first round pick in like 10 years that's played 200 games with the Hawks.
To make it to their second contract.
Yeah.
It's
This is why we're here. And Davidson is in a hole, and he knows that he's got to keep going to get through it.
Yeah. It all goes, again, I know I mentioned it last episode, that Seth Jones train's really, really killer.
I love Seth Jones. Hate the trade so very much.
I understood it in the time because I thought the Hawks were going to be good.
We all did. We all thought they were a playoff team.
It made sense at the time, but like now in hindsight, it sucks because we essentially traded 3 lottery picks with Adam Boquist being one of them. And then the 6th overall last year, 6th overall last year, 7th overall this year for Seth Jones, and basically a early second with the Nolan Allen pick. It all goes back to that. It sucks, but you're kind of with Alex DeBrincat. I know we covered this. This is the last time I'll talk about it because we kind of got to move on from him.
Yeah,
but
I guess.
You're closer to making the playoffs with Alex DeBrincat. But when you're trading, like you keep Alex DeBrincat if the goal is playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
If the goal is Stanley Cup, you trade him and try to get as many assets as you can that could fill out the roster. And essentially that's what it came down to. It sucks, but.
And listen, if Krasinski hits and it looks like, man, I got to watch a lot of the whatever they streamed of the Blackhawk, the scrimmage, the prospect scrimmage, and like tried to keep as up to date as possible on like that prospects week. Man, Krasinski looked good. Like he was skating circles around people, looking smooth, looking composed. Him and Nazar and Paul Ludinsky.
Yeah, Ludwinski.
Yeah, Ludwinski. I feel like those 3 and Rinzel were the 4 prospects that stood out to me throughout that scrimmage with like Alex Vlasic, Lewis Craver, them taking that next step forward into like leadership positions, but like Krasinski, Nazar, Ludwinski, Rinzel, they looked good. I haven't seen prospects look good outside like just right out of the gate in years. It's worth getting excited about.
That's early first rounders though, Tim. And you think of it, you guys could have had 2 other ones.
Yeah,
I know.
Cole Sillinger being one of them.
Yeah, Cole Sillinger. And realistically, if we don't do the Seth Jones trade,
you still have Adam Boquist
at 6.
You still have Boquist.
Yep. We might not have needed Krasinski, but we could have gotten him at 6. Still do the Kirby Doc move, keep DeBrincat, get Nazar. Like
it could have been fixed a lot quicker.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like when I say that Seth Jones trade sets us back 5 years, it legitimately sets us back. Like,
100%.
And you're but you also kind of got a feel for him now. Like I kind of feel bad for
sucks.
Seth Jones. Like it's not his fault. It's not Seth Jones' fault.
He signed with this team. The reason he went here to sign a long-term extension was because he was promised playoffs and like where we were going. Everyone had a reason to believe it would be. And now he's trapped. He's trapped in a hellscape.
Pat Brisson represents Taves, Kane, and Seth Jones.
Oh, Lord.
You think he just has his phone on mute right now? He's like, "Fuck this shit storm. I'm gonna."
Yeah, exactly. He's
like this will yeah, this I'll get to this one later. Put it in the draft, put it in the spam in the emails or whatever.
yeah, exactly. Just mute that for a bit.
I'll get back to you guys later. But we talked about departures, and
This is the big one.
I think this is the toughest one. A voice we heard all throughout our golden years of Blackhawks hockey, even the tough years. Pat Foley's best friend, Eddie Olczyk, is leaving the Blackhawks organization after 16 wonderful years of being a color commentator. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll go more into it, but Tim, go ahead.
I mean, the man was an institution. He's a hometown kid. He's, Chicago area native. He plays for the Hawks as an absolute legend. He was a third overall pick, right?
Mm-hmm.
You love to see it. Exactly. Plays his career, plays with the Hawks for as long as he did, and then comes back. He has been a trusted and grounding voice. He's been the perfect yin to Pat Foley's yang. Like he's been able to walk this line. I saw it reported. One of the remarkable things about Eddie O is he walked a remarkable line between being a homer and hyping up the team and, really helping people, rally, while also calling it like it is. And
he's honest.
Yeah. He's called out the organization. He's called out the team with the way they're playing. Like Pat Foley would shoot from the hip a little bit. But like
he had a couple of Bud Lights in him though.
Yeah, exactly. This is garbage. This is bad. But Eddie Olczyk, he would say, well, this is not good, and this is why. I mean, I think his, stop right there, all you young hockey fans, is seared into my brain. That's how I look at things.
Sticks on ice.
I mean, that's what I think about when I'm explaining hockey to anyone that's watching a game with me. It's like, for all you young hockey fans out there, like, this is what's happening. He's the voice that even when things got bad, him and Pat Foley, we could trust, and we would still tune into games. And Nick, I'm sure you're the same way. You still tuned into games because of them. Yeah.
I mean, like you said, you nailed it. It's the trust factor. It's like you turn it on, even when they sucked, you put them on there. It was familiar voices. It was like a friend, like you just heard them talking in the background. And I think at this time, especially, you need an Eddie Olczyk. I mean, you already lost Pat Foley. You need Eddie Olczyk.
Yeah.
Like, you need that honesty from he's a Blackhawks fan. He was a player. He's been employed by them for the last 16 years.
He was part of their GM search committee.
Yeah.
He was there to moderate that town hall that went
poorly.
Yeah, exactly. But he was that's not an accident. He deliberately was there because that's a voice that people could trust.
And it's just gone. It sucks. I mean, so
yeah. You want to jump into the why?
Yeah. So I'll do my eulogy. I'll do my eulogy at the end. But so to the Blackhawks and Eddie Olczyk, there was a contract on the table. All right. The Hawks said they were blindsided by it. I'll get to why I disagree in a second.
Yeah. I mean,
the Hawks say they're blindsided by it, but it all came down to, like Eddie Olczyk said, he did his little goodbye tour with Chicago radio. It all came down to the almighty dollar. And everybody and it seems like a lot more people on Olczyk's side in this case, which is great, but you got to show your respect when it comes to contract negotiations for this type of guy. Olczyk is one of the voices of the NHL. He's been around for the Hawks forever. He's on national broadcast forever. TNT paid him well. Or is it TNT, right? He's TNT, not ESPN.
I think he's TNT.
Yeah, he's TNT. TNT pays him. NBC locked him up for horse racing even after NBC left.
Love it.
They kept him up. Eddie Olczyk's one of those guys you keep around. And the Hawks had this contract on the table that it was basically paid per game. Not, I understand. Yeah, go ahead. Tim.
It's an intro again, looking at it from my contract negotiation background. It's interesting. It was a higher per diem rate per game. So he would have made more per game than he would have in his previous contract. However, he's used to a contract structured on a full year, if I understand correctly, the full 82 game schedule. Whereas the Hawks said, hey, you're going to get paid more per game, but it's going to be per game and not based on an 82 game schedule, because you don't do the games for when you're on TNT or when you're on the one of the other broadcasts that he does. And so they ended up saving, but theoretically making him per game more than he would have gotten. It just would have in the end been less because it was per game. And that's from a business perspective. If we're in a different position, if Eddie Olczyk is a different guy, if it's a regular contract negotiation in a regular time, there's merits, there's arguments. But where we're at right now, we're not icing a competitive product where we're already saving money in other areas. This is the one area that we should have been loyal. This is the one area where it's good business. And this, so many times with player contracts, it's like, oh, we shouldn't have been loyal to this person and given them a 7-year contract when they're 33 and injured. Like, this is good business to let Eddie Olczyk write his own check, because he is the one grounding influence that will get people who otherwise might have been checked out from the games to come back and listen to the games and watch the games, not because of the Hawks product, but because of Eddie O and his consistency and his insight. And they did not treat this like Eddie Olczyk was the primary commodity that they would be selling this year. They treated him as the voice of the commodity that they're selling. And that's like, I see where they're at, but it was a miscalculation, because you can't just replace Eddie Olczyk was the commodity, not just the voice this year.
Yeah, it's just it's one of those things that it feels like it was at this point that the Hawks just kind of put an offer on the table. I feel like they knew it was a low ball. They felt like it was fair. I'm putting in heavy quotes. I feel like it's just one of those things like, hey, we offered them.
They also said they believed they had a verbal agreement in place, which, like, as a former recruiter, that
you don't.
That means absolutely nothing.
Like, I understand you don't pay players on loyalty, you don't pay players on past production, you pay players for future. Eddie Olczyk's one of those guys who's been around the league. He's played the game. He's coached the game. He's been in executive roles in the game. He's been calling Hawks games for 16 years. And it just, it really aggravates me that it listening to his like farewell tour on ESPN 1000, like how much he was breaking down on the show on NBC Sports Chicago. I forgot what it's Uncut or something like that.
Yeah.
Unfiltered. And just seeing him cry and kind of like say like he's going to die a Blackhawk fan. And
he loves this city. He loves this team.
It's his home. It's his home. He's from here.
Right. It's not just like he was a player from here. He's of here. And like, again, it's one thing, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm totally, if they changed broadcast, if they changed voices, if they changed commentators during the dynasty period, if they switched in like 2014, 2015, 2016, even, I don't think playing hardball would have been looked at as crazy, because the product was selling itself. You could put somebody in and they had the luxury of calling the greatest era of Blackhawks hockey in history. Now it's hard enough that Chris Vosters is going to have to come in and call this team. Now you're going to have to put somebody else with him. Any thoughts on who it's going to be? Just out of curiosity.
I know they want a former player. Sharp's coaching he's coaching in Vermont though.
Yeah, I don't know if they can pull him away from that.
Burrish,
Shawzy,
Shawzy, Campbell's in front office.
I don't know if they'd pull Versteeg. I feel like Versteeg's a little wild for them.
Fuck it.
I mean, listen, I agree with you, but I'm thinking about this organization.
Yeah. You can't have any more Pat Foley situations where you say he's KMS.
Yeah, exactly. You can't trust Versteeg to maybe hold his tongue sometimes. I love it, but I will say I think Kaylee is that Kaylee Chelios? Casey Chelios. Okay. I thought she did a really solid job when she did some of the rotating games. I know they like Colby Cohen more in the studio or between the benches, but he's a possibility if they do the rotating thing again. Like I said, I like Chelios. Her and Vosters might be a nice pairing if they're going to go, screw it, let's go young and build these people up over a couple of years. But yeah, man, if they could pull Sharp away, he would have been the best pick.
Yeah. But it's going to be one of those knowledgeable players, old players, or I hope maybe even Casey Chelios, but it just,
Burrish would be good.
Yeah, he was on NBC Sports Chicago. Yeah. It's just, I feel like it's unfair to both Vosters and whoever fills Eddie Olczyk's role. Like, they're replacing two legends of this city. And, you know, I kind of get into my eulogy points. Like, Olczyk, I grew up like every year during the dynasty, even like not during the dynasty years. Like, I still tuned in. It wasn't every night because it's hard to tune in every night when the team's abysmal. But like during the cup run, I think I watched all 82 games, like for even 7 straight years, like even after, because like you could always rely on Pat Foley and Eddie Olczyk giving you a great night, and it's all over. Like growing up, listening to that and giving me like the best memories of my childhood, just watching hockey and like celebrating with my dad and family and whatnot. It just, it's something that kind of hit the home and it caught me off guard for sure. That's like the Blackhawks. There's rumors swirling like the Blackhawks have some news coming out. Nobody knew what it was, and then it was Olczyk's going to Seattle. It sucks. It really hits home. I know, like it's like they always said. I mean, we hope you enjoy the broadcast despite the outcome. And I mean, 16 years a great podcast.
Man, I did. I always enjoyed the broadcast.
Yeah. Now I don't want to. I know I tweeted out of anger like this team's unwatchable and unlistenable, like with the broadcast, but it's gonna take some getting used to. I mean, Jordan, how long have
That's a good
shoot,
is it Mickey something?
Mickey Redmond and gosh, why am I blanking on it? Mickey Redmond and Ken Kale.
They've been around since the early 90s, no?
Yeah, they've been doing it for a while.
Well, Olczyk was still playing.
Yeah, was it? I mean, Detroit's broadcast team. Yeah, you've got Mickey Redmond, Ken Kale does it a little bit. Osgood every once in a while will step in to do it.
I love that. That's awesome.
I'm trying to think why am I blanking on the other one? But anyway, like the Red Wings, they have had people doing this, like the same people doing the broadcast for a pretty decent amount of time.
Nick, something that I just realized, because I was thinking like, well, at least, a lot of my memories also come from listening to WGN and like listening to the radio. One of the things I just realized, it sort of got swept under the rug with everything that's going on. Nick Olczyk also left the organization, right?
Yeah, he had to feel like that was coming. I mean, I feel like I always thought he was gonna be like the next in kin. But if maybe he feels like they did their dad dirty. His dad. I mean,
dirty. There's no other reason. Like the timing is too weird to not have them connected, right?
Yeah, it's something. I mean, because it was the same day like Nick Olczyk left the Blackhawks organization.
Well, that's I'm scanning all of these, like refreshing Twitter every second, just like I need more, and I'm seeing like at the little like end of things, Nick Olczyk has also left the organization. I'm like, well, why are we talking about this too?
Yeah, but like that's what I love about. I mean, yes, there's some meatball fans out there, But that's what I love about the passionateness of Chicago sports.
Yeah.
Like, you lose a broadcaster and it feels like the world is falling. Like, this was our guy. This is the guy we tune into. This was our comfort zone. Like, you had a rough day at work. The Hawks are on. I'm going to crack open a beer, listen to Pat and Eddie.
100%.
And now that's gone from us. I mean, like when Len Casper left the Cubs to go to the White Sox, it hurt Cubs fans dearly. So this is, I mean,
it's great
just
for the Sox, but
yeah, it just sucks. I'm losing my childhood voices that I've heard every night going to other teams.
And oh, go ahead. I want you to finish.
No, yeah. I mean, just want to say that. I mean, thanks, Eddie Olczyk. It was truly a ride, and sad that it has to end this way.
I mean, good for Seattle, though. They're going to have somebody who's really knowledgeable helping that market grow on TV.
Oh, my God. Seattle, you got a good one. I know I've got some people in the Seattle area that watch this or listen to this podcast. Enjoy, because you've got one of the literal best in the business.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be nice to be here on visit. But, yeah, I mean, they got a good broadcaster in general. They got John Frolin, Eddie Olczyk, and JT Brown. JT Brown does commentary for them as well. I think
they've got some killer prospects. They've got a killer broadcasting team. They're slow
doing it
and
right.
steady, going to be a solid organization.
Yeah, good for them. Truly one of the best in the business, if not the best in the business.
I did want to follow up. Love Eddie Olczyk. Wish him the absolute best. You've pretty much summed up everything that I could have possibly felt. So I'm not going to try and rehash that. But what I do want to say, yes, our childhood voice, our beloved, trusted voice, they're both gone in Pat Foley and Eddie O. That said, give the new voices a chance.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be weird. It's going to be jarring. Nobody's going to be comfortable. Chris Vosters was supposed to start with the great Eddie O and learn and grow and hone. He didn't sign on for this. Whoever's taking the place of Eddie O didn't sign on for this. Like, can we all just give him a shot? I know how cruel we can be. And it's not because we have any ill will towards the actual people. It's because they're not our people.
Yeah.
And I get it, because I can be just as bad as that sometimes. And I catch myself doing it. And I'm like, well, that's not fair. Nobody's Pat Foley. Like, I'm excited to hear what Vosters brings. I'm excited to see whoever they bring in to not replace Eddie O, but to be one of the new voices of the Hawks. Let's give them a shot. I'm hoping that maybe for any new Hawks fans out there, maybe this is their voice for a series of time. My godson's at an age where he's paying attention and like acknowledging what a Hawks game is. Like, maybe these are his voices growing up. Like, I don't know. The on ice product is bad, but hopefully that will grow too. We're in a very new, uncharted territory that the Hawks haven't been in since like I was a kid.
Yeah, this is just a whole new era. Like, it's a complete reset.
Yeah.
Like, we might as well be an expansion team at this point.
I mean, basically, yeah.
It's just all about conformity. I mean, I guess as the quote goes in The Office, it's like, I wish there was a way to know you were in the good old days before the good old days passed. So, thanks, Eddie Olczyk. I mean, that's really it for the Hawks news. The one thing that really transpired since you guys recorded earlier in this episode a couple days ago, Matthew Tkachuk's on his way out of Calgary.
I'm so glad you brought it up. I was wondering if we were going to touch on this.
He gone.
He's totally. I mean, he's announced that he's not gonna sign long. He has no intention of signing long term with the team. He basically did what Seth Jones said. The only difference, of course, is Tkachuk would be an RFA, I believe.
Yeah.
But the most he would sign is to get him to free agency, and then he's walking. You might as well. At least Calgary knows now. They don't have to get to the end of the year and then have him say, this is it. This is all I'm going to do. One of the things go ahead. Yeah, they can prep for it. And one of the things I keep seeing between this and the Gaudreau thing is, people being up in arms like, don't you have any loyalty to the team that drafted you? How could you do this to the team and the city that drafted you? I said this before the show. A player doesn't owe anything to the team that drafted them.
They owe them up to their RFA expiration, and then you owe them nothing.
Right. And that's a contractual obligation that they have. They don't have the bargaining or negotiation power to not owe them. Like,
unless you're Eric Lindros, you just get the fuck out of there before you even have.
yeah, that's it. I'm not gonna play there. Have fun.
Okay. All right. That's how this is.
I guess that's what it's gonna be. I guess if you're
I
Eric
wish
Lindros,
more people did that. Like, nah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I remember when Tavares left the Islanders and everyone was like, what a betrayal, what a scumbag. He's a mercenary going to Toronto. He went where he wanted to go.
That's New Yorkers for you.
I mean, yeah. Well, again, if that happened in Chicago, I feel like we'd be absolutely no different.
No, I want Kane to get out. Like, Kane, save yourself. I love you. I'm gonna miss you, but like,
I was gonna say, I personally want Kane to be here forever, but also I want him to do what makes him happy.
Yeah,
if he gets to a point,
you don't owe us nothing, dude.
I mean, Nick, do you remember growing up the way people vilified Chris Chelios for being traded to the Red Wings?
Yeah,
like something that really wasn't in his control.
I think
like. I grew up like hating Chris Chelios for the sole reason I was supposed to.
Yeah, it was just like one of those things like, we hate Chris Chelios. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, cool. I'm on board. Yeah, Red Wings suck. Let's go.
Yeah, like it was just one of those weird things. It all goes back to his comment. Like, he was like, I will never play for the Red Wings in my life. I think he said that way earlier in an interview. But like, life goes on. Like, you don't have control where you get traded.
Right. What are you gonna do? Pout? Like, it's a business.
Yeah, it sucks, but like this is, I think Kachuk, in the Kachuk standpoint, he's a young player. He knows he doesn't want to be there. I would rather a player do that than kind of milk it all along, sign that 1-year deal, and be like,
and then leave them. Yeah.
Like, this puts Calgary in a spot where they could go get assets.
I mean, look at Panarin and Bobrovsky in Columbus, for example. That there was no secret, but that said, they did sort of drag it along a little bit. And like, Columbus lost a couple of quality players for nothing. At least with Gaudreau, I think there were rumblings and understandings that it wasn't going to be easy to re-sign him if he was going to come back, but they were in a playoff hunt. And like, what do you do? If I'm Calgary, I would not have done anything different in this last year because you're chasing a cup. You go for it. And honestly, Columbus did the same thing with Panarin and Bobrovsky.
They swept Tampa.
Yeah. Like, sometimes you lose players for nothing. I think that's in the way our hard salary cap is and the way assets are everything in hockey right now. We lose sight of that, but sometimes you go for it. I love that.
Like, not everyone can be a rental at the end of the day. Like, if you really want to compete, eventually you do have to just lock down to some players and say, we are riding these contracts out until they expire because we think we've got it here.
Yeah. You're going to free. Fine. While you're with us, let's go. Let's ride. And like, Gaudreau was a monster and he looked great. And oh my God.
He had the most 5-on-5 points in the league.
And yeah, that's phenomenal. Actually, that's a great stat. And Matthew Tkachuk, I mean, it's no secret that he wants to be on the Blues. And like, yeah. And that's a cool, like, every kid wants to play for his hometown team. And that's really cool that maybe he might. And he should have some say in where he goes. I don't know. That's
sucks to the Hawks, man. That's for sure.
Oh no, I hate it. I hate the idea. I love watching him now. I'm gonna hate playing against him consistently. I'd much rather he goes somewhere else that doesn't bother us every 5 times a year. But it goes back to my thing of these are human beings with intricate negotiation reasons. And, Johnny Gaudreau wants to be closer to home. He wants to be, Matthew Tkachuk wants what he wants. Yeah, Eddie Olczyk, it's down to the dollar and the respect, and he's going to go someplace where he knows his value. We would not ask anyone else in any business or entity to settle for less than what they think they are, or to not, have your priorities in line and want to align with that. I'm trying to personally be better about applying that logic to sports.
Yeah, Jordan, we were talking before show, and not even talking before the show, is texting a couple hours before the show. Do you see the Wings? They're kind of in that position. Like, they're in a really awkward spot. They have a deep prospect pool. I don't think Calgary wants prospects. I think they still want to stick alive and make a run for things. Do you see Stevie Y making this type of splash?
This is a hard one. Like,
do you want Stevie Y? Like, knowing the assets you might have to give up.
You gotta want Matthew Tkachuk, right?
Yeah, but like that, also factoring in what you have to give up, and then we'll go into what you actually have to give up.
It's hard because, like, would I love Tkachuk on the Wings? Yeah, absolutely, I would love Tkachuk on the Wings. Yeah. But if you get Tkachuk on the Wings, you're giving up probably very real rebuild assets, and Detroit's still not technically made the playoffs yet. Like, me and David fully think that it's going to happen this year, but they still aren't quite out of the woods yet. And could Matthew Tkachuk be that guy who moves the needle to the playoffs? Yeah, sure. But we've seen moves like this happen before, where the Wings trade off quality prospects or picks and it blows up in their face. Case in point, Kyle Quincy. We traded a first-round pick to Tampa Bay, who turned into Sergei Bobrovsky, franchise-level goaltender. Like,
Vasilevsky or Bobrovsky?
Vasilevsky, sorry.
Vasilevsky. I was like, wait a minute, Bobrovsky.
If he wasn't going to cost arguably high-end rebuild assets, sure, but the problem is he's going to cost probably high-end rebuild assets.
Because comparing Detroit to a similar situation I see actually arguing on Twitter today, I think it was with that Jay Fresh guy on Twitter who posts all the analytics. There was a question, like, and I feel like Detroit's in a very similar spot as the Ottawa Senators. They both had high picks before, obviously, the DeBrincat trade. It's like, did Ottawa try to end their rebuild too early? Like, did they try to be like, all right, we're going for it way too early instead of waiting another year? Like, it could have been another situation for, like, if Detroit makes this move, is it just because, like, does it really even put you over it doesn't put you over the edge yet.
Yeah, because we haven't got to the edge yet.
Yeah. Like, I don't think you could end your, like, where Detroit's going to be this year is still part of the rebuild process.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is going to get the young guys, like, these young guys that are entering the lineup, like Moritz Seider, obviously Keller Trophy winner. He's a stud. Beauty.
Love it.
Everything. Drawing a blank. Simone Edvinsson. And then Joe Veleno. Like, this is going to be their year. They learn how to be professionals and win and potentially make a playoff spot, which is a big impact.
Mm-hmm.
Like, learning to do whatever it takes to win and get yourself into the playoffs helps for future playoff runs. I think rushing it and giving up on assets, I think it's dumb. But I understand, like, it's a big prize project that Matthew Tkachuk. Literally, he's big, he's massive. But I also think it's going to be an underwhelming return, as we've seen with DeBrincat, because who knows if Tkachuk, if he goes anywhere but St. Louis, is he going to sign long term?
He had a list of like 5 teams, and I know the Blues and Dallas were on that. I think Detroit might be on that too, actually. I know both the Rangers and the Rangers in New Jersey were also teams that were open potentially, but he has a list of like 5 or 6 teams that he would be willing to sign long-term with.
Not even the Senate. He wants no part of Senators.
There's not a single Canadian team.
Wow, he doesn't want to go with Brady.
I know that shocked me too. I was looking for that.
Yeah.
But I looked after the Gaudreau thing and some of the comments about like maybe he doesn't want to play in Canada. I looked at all the teams that Kachuk offered, and it's like, yeah, it's all US. Let's see what happens here.
But it's getting really common with US born players. Like they want to be in the States.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, we've kind of talked about it on other episodes, but some of it kind of, I think, does have to factor into the US dollar versus the Canadian dollar. Tax structures are, as much as the league doesn't want to admit it, a real thing that impacts salaries.
I mean, I don't blame him for wanting to go to Dallas. No state income tax.
Same with like
Yes,
Florida,
please.
with like Tampa Bay or the Panthers. Cool. You mean I can
Vegas,
take
no state income tax?
It's a massive factor. The NHL refuses to like actually say it or do something about it.
How can they?
Yeah,
Like,
you can't.
much of Canada, you can't. There's no good way to say, hey, the US dollar is not great right now, but it is better than the Canadian dollar. And this isn't, there's no reason that a player would want to go where their dollar is worth less and then also lose the taxes on top of that. Like, there's no way to say that without, basically saying, why would someone want to play in Canada outside of like Toronto or Montreal, which are amazing cities. The Vancouver is a beautiful city, by the way. I love Vancouver, but like, why would someone want to go to Winnipeg or
Edmonton?
Yeah, like that's hard. It's hard to sell people on. It's been hard to sell people on Columbus. Like there are merits to that. There are cities that people want to play in if they had their say.
Just get rid of the Canadian dollar aspect in the NHL salary cap. Pay these guys a little more money.
Oh, that'd be interesting. Like everyone's like, it's a conversion. Basically, like the salary cap is in a set thing, and no matter what, even if you're a Canadian team, maybe it's whatever it is, 83.3 mil. Mm-hmm. Something like that. It's US. So Canadian salaries have more room to play with theoretically. Like it's a different cap, but it's the same US equivalent.
Yes.
I'm all for that.
I think that's what it should be.
It just makes no sense that, I mean,
there's got to be a way to even this out.
The NHL is headquartered in Toronto.
That's like, it, right?
How many Canadian teams are there to US teams? It's a United States league.
So what you're saying is Arizona to Quebec City. That's what I'm hearing.
I mean, just get rid of Arizona in general.
You can just take the whole state.
Go back to 31 teams and just kind of distribute their players.
I think that's a great idea.
Maybe give Wisconsin a team.
Absolutely. Listen, Milwaukee deserves a team. We've been over this. But no, I'm with you 100%. Like something's got to be done to balance, because if it is coming down to pure dollars and cents, something's got to be done to balance it out. It's just not fair. Canada loves hockey so much, and it's weird that aside from Toronto and Montreal, who else is clamoring? And again, Vancouver's also got massive cap issues that they're trying to figure out and balance every year. I think that's why I never include Vancouver, because they're never involved in the discussions. Something's got to be done.
Yeah. So ultimately, I mean, I think Kachuk's traded by the end of the week.
I do too.
Look for him to go home to St. Louis. I mean, Jordan Kyrou or something like that involved in a trade with that.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, fix the Canadian dollar. I don't know.
If you listen to this episode,
if you listen to this episode, all you need to know is Canadian dollar system is screwed. Just even out the NHL salary cap. Life will be so much simpler. Players will get paid more. Everybody will be happier.
Again, if there's a way to regulate the cap because there's going to be times that the Canadian dollar is higher than the US dollar. Just the way that things work. It's wild to not have some sort of regulated cap structure that doesn't account for two different currencies and the many different tax structures.
I mean, I honestly think what players should be doing in the league should be looking at in general is, you have the US dollar, they say, what is it, $83 million or whatever the cap is. Instead of a player bargaining for, say, $5 million a year, they should bargain for a percentage. You translate the US dollar to the Canadian dollar. When they go play for Canada, they get whatever that percentage is of the Canadian dollar. It's fair.
I listen, I love it. I think this is the nobody's having this conversation that I'm seeing. Like I don't know, everything that I listen to, it's like acknowledging there's an issue, but no one's bringing up suggestions.
Yeah, I mean, you keep the U.S. players happy. I mean, yeah, they're far from home, but they're getting paid how they should be.
And the Canadian players certainly aren't going to complain.
Yeah, that's home. That's the only advantage Canadian teams have is the Canadian players want to go to their local provinces or whatever you call it. And but American players want to go back to the States, and they're willing to go anywhere. The other 25 teams, 26.
Yeah,
I mean, they've certainly got a much wider range to pick from. Yeah.
But I mean, what were you saying, Jordan?
I was saying, but yeah, like that's the thing is the US is a lot more open than Canada is in terms of like where your selections are that you want to play. If you go hit UFA, you get to pretty much go wherever you want.
Well, and like as we saw in the Johnny Gaudreau situation, okay, obviously Philly is his best bet to be near his family. Philly was never realistically an option. So he went to Columbus, which is like still close enough, like still close enough.
It's like a stone's throw away.
Yeah, the college mindset. I'm close enough to you guys, but I'm also far enough to you guys to do my own thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like if that happens in Canada, if you're from Toronto, but there's no option there, I guess when that Ottawa's your closest at this point. Like, what are you gonna do? There's just more spread out, more options. Everything is available to you when you get into all of the U.S. teams.
Oh, yeah. Whether you're on the East or West Coast, take good old Route 66, and you'll get there eventually.
And nobody still wants to go to Buffalo.
God, yeah. You know what? Buffalo,
I'm sorry, that's your second favorite team. I forget.
I love Buffalo. They're on a good things. They're on a good things.
Honest, they're better than they've been. They're not Arizona.
They've actually got like a real prospect pipeline finally starting to develop.
Well, give it a couple years. Let's see if those prospects develop.
Yeah, and they're also like in the favorites to land Patrick Kane in the Fodeva trade or whatever.
I'll cry.
They would that would completely destroy them again.
Yeah,
that
would not be beneficial for Buffalo.
Like Buffalo's nowhere near a playoff spot still.
Yeah,
Why would they trade for that?
It would just make them just good enough to stop getting high picks,
just to get fans at the games. Like, all right, screw it.
That's why we're gonna get Phil Kessel.
Oh God, it would have been perfect if you signed today. It's National Hot Dog Day.
I will like listen. I make a mean Chicago dog. Like I'll personally deliver the man a hot dog if he wants to come play for the Hawks for a year.
Not even a year, Phil. Just stay till March. I got a nice cozy.
Oh yeah,
I got a cozy bed over here. I got a dog that you could cuddle with. I got a Blackstone grill that we can grill some dogs on. Like, come on, man.
Set. There we go.
Kill some beers. We'll have a great old time. But other than that, is there really any other NHL news that you guys didn't cover on Monday?
No, I don't think that. So like I said, we covered all the wing stuff. We covered all of the stuff with like Gaudreau. We just covered the Hawks stuff. So I think that's it for the show.
Yeah. I mean, barring anything tragic or dramatic to go down the next,
or exciting. Yeah. Exciting things still do happen. I promise.
Yeah. It is the dog days of summer. We're getting. There's gonna be camp starting up soon. Like we're getting close, somewhat. Close.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, barring that, we'll be back at some point.
I mean, I won't spoil it. There's gonna be a GM hat for all of us being worn here in a couple of weeks when we do our own card draft.
What are we
I'm
doing?
so brother, it's been in the chat. We've talked about this.
We'll talk off the show about it.
All right.
It's gonna be fun. It's a very fun. It's gonna be cool content.
Oh,
you know.
and we have an interview coming soon too at some point.
Yes, I forgot about that. We
Yes.
will
Oh,
be
yeah.
having interviews.
A good old recurring guest that is so much smarter than all of us.
I mean, truly, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's it for the show for this half of the podcast, as well as the full episode now, because we have the Wings and the Hawks halves of the free agency finally done. For anybody who's tuned in or listening nightly, really appreciate you guys watching and tuning into the show. At the end of the day, like we said before, and we're going to keep saying it, it's a fan cast by fans for fans. If you like it, feel free to check us out on either YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts. You can even email us if you want, stickbladepodcast@gmail.com. Just we're on all the socials. Give us social media currency of choice on the platform you're on. We'll get with you guys later once we have an idea for what we're going to do for the rest of the off season, because it's the off season until really the prospect games start going on, where the teams start playing their prospects against other teams' prospects. There's not really a ton for us to talk about, and we don't want to waste your guys' time. So when we get it figured out what we're doing, we'll let you guys know on our socials. But in the meantime, you guys all stay safe and take care. We'll catch you guys back all here next time. Catch y'all later.